Her manner is agitated, her appeal for assistance urgent, though she acknowledges no relationship to the girl or expresses any especial cause for her interest, beyond that of common humanity. She must be found, she declares, and hints that any sum necessary will be forthcoming, though from what source after her own pittance is expended, she does not state. When asked if her master has no interest in the matter, she changes color and puts us off. He never noticed his servants, left all such concerns to her, etc., but shows fear when a proposition is made to consult him. Next, imagine yourself with the detectives in that gentleman's house. You enter the girl's room. What is the first thing you observe? Why, that it is not only one of the best in the house, but that it is conspicuous for its comforts if not its elegancies. More than that there are books of poetry and history lying around, showing that the woman who inhabited it was above her station, a fact which the housekeeper is presently brought to acknowledge. You notice also that the wild surmise of her abduction by means of the window has some ground in appearance, though the fact that she went with entire unwillingness is not made so apparent. The housekeeper, however, insists in a way that must have some special knowledge of the girl's character or circumstances to back it, that she never went without compulsion, a statement which the torn curtains and the track of blood over the roof of the extension would seem to emphasize. A few other facts are made known. First, a penknife is picked up from the grass plot in the yard beneath, showing with what instrument the wound was inflicted, whose drippings made those marks of blood alluded to. It was a pearl-handled knife belonging to the writing desk found open on her table, and its frail and dainty character proved indisputably that it was employed by the girl herself, and that against manifest enemies, no man being likely to snatch up any such puny weapon for the purpose of either offense or defense. That these enemies were two and were both men was insisted upon by Mrs. Daniels, who overheard their voices the night before. Mr. Blake, such facts as these arouse curiosity, especially when the master of the house, being introduced upon the scene, he fails to manifest common human interest, while his housekeeper betrays in every involuntary gesture and expression she makes use of, her horror, if not her fear, of his presence, and her relief at his departure. "Yes," he exclaimed, unheeding the sudden look here cast him by Mr. Blake. And curiosity begets inquiry, and inquiry elucidated further facts such as these: that the mysterious master of the house was in his garden at the hour of the girl's departure, was even looking through the bars of the gate when she, having evidently escaped from her captors, came back with every apparent desire to re-enter her home, but seeing him, betrayed an unreasonable amount of fear, and fled back even into the very arms of the men she had endeavored to avoid. "Did you speak, sir?" asked Mr. Gryce, suddenly stopping, with a sly look at his left boot tip. Mr. Blake shook his head. "No," said he shortly. "Go on." But that last remark of Mr. Gryce had evidently made its impression. Inquiry revealed also 2 or 3 other interesting facts. First, that this gentleman, qualified though he was to shine in ladies' society, never obtruded himself there, but employed his leisure time instead in walking the lower streets of the city, where he was seen more than once conversing with certain poor girls at street corners and in blind alleys. The last one he talked with, believed from her characteristics to be the same one that was abducted from his house. "Hold there," said Mr. Blake, with some authority in his tone. "There you are mistaken. That is impossible." "Ah, and why?" "The girl you allude to had bright golden hair, something with which the woman who lived in my house did not possess." "Indeed? I thought you had never noticed the woman who sewed for you, sir. Did not know how she looked." "I should have noticed her if she had had such hair as the girl you speak of." Mr. Gryce smiled and opened his pocket book. "There is a sample of her hair, sir," said he, taking out a thin strand of brilliant hair, and showing it to the gentleman before him. "Bright, you see, and golden as that of the unfortunate creature you talked with the other night." Mr. Blake stooped forward, and lifted it with a hand that visibly trembled. "Where did you get this?" he asked at last, clenching it to his breast with sudden passion. "From out of the comb which the girl had been using the night before." The imperious man flung it hastily from him. "We waste our time," said he, looking Mr. Gryce intently in the face. "All that you have said does not account for your presence here, nor the tone you have used while addressing me. What are you keeping back? I am not a man to be trifled with." Mr. Gryce rose to his feet. "You are right," said he, and he gave a short glance in my direction. "All that I have said would not perhaps justify me in this intrusion, if—" He looked again towards me. "Do you wish me to continue?" he asked. Mr. Blake's intent look deepened. "I see no reason why you should not utter the whole," said he. "A good story loses nothing by being told to the end. You wish to say something about my journey to the Schoenmaker's house, I suppose." Mr. Gryce gravely shook his head. "What, you can let such a mystery as that go without a word?" "I am not here to discuss mysteries that have no connection with the sewing girl in whose cause I am interested." "Then," said Mr. Blake, turning for the first time upon my superior with all the dignified composure for which he was eminent, "it is no longer necessary for us to prolong this interview. I have allowed, nay, encouraged you to state in the plainest terms what it was you had or imagined you had against me, knowing that my actions of late, seen by those who did not possess the key to them, must have seemed a little peculiar. But when you say you have no interest in any mystery disconnected with the girl who has lived the last few months in my house, I can with assurance say that it is time we quitted this unprofitable conversation, as nothing which I have lately done, said, or thought here or elsewhere has in any way had even the remotest bearing upon that individual, she having been a stranger to me while in my house, and quite forgotten by me after her unaccountable departure hence." Mr. Gryce's hand, which had been stretched out towards the hitherto untouched decanter before him, suddenly dropped. "You deny then," said he, "all connection between yourself and the woman, lady, or sewing girl who occupied that room above our heads for 11 months previous to the Sunday morning I first had the honor to make your acquaintance?" "I am not in the habit of repeating my assertions," said Mr. Blake with some severity, "even when they relate to a less disagreeable matter than the one under discussion." Mr. Gryce bowed, and slowly reached out for his hat. I had never seen him so disturbed. "I am sorry," he began, and stopped, fingering his hat brim nervously. Suddenly he laid his hat back, and drew up his form into as near a semblance of dignity as its portliness would allow. "Mr. Blake," said he, "I have too much respect for the man I believed you to be when I entered this house tonight, to go with the things unsaid which is lying at present like a dead weight upon my lips. I dare not leave you to the consequence of my silence, for duty will compel me to speak some day, and in some presence where you may not have the opportunity which you can have here, to explain yourself with satisfaction. Mr. Blake, I cannot believe you when you say the girl who lived in this house was a stranger to you." Mr. Blake drew his proud form up in a disdain that was only held in check by the very evident honesty of the man before him. "You are courageous at least," said he. "I regret you are not equally discriminating," and, raising Mr. Gryce's hat, he placed it in his hand. "Pardon me," said that gentleman, "I would like to justify myself before I go, not with words," he proceeded as the other folded his arms with a sarcastic bow. "I am done with words. Action accomplishes the rest. Mr. Blake, I believe you consider me an honest officer and a reliable man. Will you accompany me to your private room for a moment? There is something there which may convince you I was neither playing the fool nor the bravado when I uttered the phrase I did an instant ago." I expected to hear the haughty master of the house refuse a request so peculiar, but he only bowed, though in a surprised way that showed his curiosity, if no more, was aroused. "My room and company are at your disposal," said he, "but you will find nothing there to justify you in your assertions." "Let me at least make the effort," entreated my superior. Mr. Blake, smiling bitterly, immediately led the way to the door. "The man may come," he remarked carelessly, as Mr. Gryce waved his hand in my direction. "Your justification, if not mine, may need witnesses." Rejoiced at the permission, for my curiosity was by this time raised to fever pitch, I at once followed, not without anxiety. The assured poise of Mr. Blake's head seemed to argue that the confidence betrayed by my superior